There's often a misconception out there that having a high salary means that you're going to be rich and you're going to make a lot of money. Well, that's not always true. An important factor of building wealth is keeping your overall cost of living low. And the best way to keep your cost of living low, especially for new business owners and especially for entrepreneurs, is to live abroad or live somewhere where the overall cost of living is much, much lower. And we're going to do some comparisons. We're going to run the numbers and I'm going to show you the cost of living in some places versus others. And what I've learned is that if you keep your overall cost of living low, it's much, much easier to start to accumulate wealth over time. What's going on, guys? It's Brad Shilkrai here. If you haven't subscribed already to this channel, go ahead and subscribe now. There is no better time to subscribe than right now. So let's hop right into this video and really dive right into things. So currently I'm living in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Now before that, I lived right outside of Bangkok, Thailand for about a year and a half. Now my annual salary in Thailand was less than $20,000. Now, that salary in the US will get me nowhere. I'm below the poverty line in the US if I make $20,000 a year. But in Thailand, I was able to live in a nice apartment with a pool and a gym. I was able to travel. I was able to have a very high standard of living because the overall cost of living in Thailand relative to the US is just much, much lower. My apartment when I lived in Bangkok cost me about $250 a month. Now let me show you what that would cost if I live somewhere like, let's say, New York City. Right now I'm in apartments.com and I'm just looking at some comparable prices. So if I had a studio apartment in New York City, at a minimum it's gonna cost me at least $1,500, most likely $2,000 or more. Now, the same type of apartment in Bangkok would cost me about $250, which is about 1/10 of the price. So you can see how much easier it is to live on much less money if you're outside of the US living in cheaper places. So now I'm gonna hop into a cost of living calculator and just do a couple comparisons between cities either in the US or Canada that people live and places abroad that are much, much cheaper to live. All right, so right now I'm inside of Numbeo.com, which is a cost of living calculator. So let's compare two cities. Now I am from Philadelphia originally, so let's put Philadelphia in here. And right now I am in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. And we can see here that overall consumer prices are 133 almost percent higher in Philadelphia than Playa del Carmen. You need around $5,000 in Philadelphia to have the same standard of life that you need in Playa del Carmen for only $2,000. That's more than 2 times as much the cost of living to live in a city like Philadelphia versus living in Playa del Carmen. Now let's look at some other things. So the average inexpensive meal in Playa del Carmen is going to be $4 versus $15 in Philadelphia. We can even scroll down and look at something like rent. In Playa del Carmen, it's going to be about $640 a month. Philadelphia, $1,600 a month. And this is how you can really see that if I did the same thing and I lived in Philadelphia, I'm going to be spending several $1,000s more a month living in Philadelphia than living in Playa del Carmen. Another perk of Playa del Carmen, the beach is right over there that way. The weather's a lot nicer and it's a much easier place to live. So let's look at a couple other examples. So a really good hotspot for people who like to live abroad or digital nomads, so to speak, is Bali, Indonesia. So let's compare that to an average American city. And we can see here that consumer prices are 55% higher in Charlotte than they are in Bali. Restaurant prices 166% higher, rent prices 262% higher. So the overall cost of living is much, much higher in Charlotte, which isn't even really regarded as that expensive of a city. And look at this one here. Inexpensive meal, $166 in Bali, $14 in Charlotte. Let's scroll down and just look at utilities, almost double in Charlotte. And some other things, clothing is going to be a little bit less. Rent, $363 versus $1,500. Buying an apartment, much cheaper in Bali. So here's another good example of why people would move to a place like Bali, operate an online business, or just work remotely, and they're going to be able to save a lot more money. Their money's going to go a lot further. All right, let's look at one more example. We're going to do Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Kansas City, Missouri. I would even consider Kansas City a relatively inexpensive city in the US compared to places like New York City or Los Angeles or Miami or things like that. And you can still see it is 111% higher consumer price wise in Kansas City versus Rio de Janeiro. Similar story here, $4 and some change for a meal versus $15. We can look at groceries generally across the board. They're going to be almost double in Kansas City. We look at transportation is going to be more expensive across the board. Look at this one, taxi, $6 versus $25. Utilities are cheaper. Fitness clubs are cheaper. Childcare is cheaper. Rent is much cheaper. Similar story here. And you can really start to see that living in places where the cost of living is less gives you a lot more power and a lot more of an ability to invest or save your money. So let's say you live abroad. Now, what are you going to do with all of this extra money? Well, maybe you can travel, maybe you can save, maybe you invest that into your business, maybe you invest that elsewhere. Regardless, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to move abroad or move somewhere that's away from home for you. Not only is living abroad going to help you out financially, it's going to give you more life experience so that you can see things from a different perspective. You can meet people from different places in the world and really just grow overall as a person, which is going to help you with your health. It's going to help you with your relationships. It's going to help you with your finances as well. So, biggest takeaway, don't be afraid to make a leap and jump away from the situation that you're in into a completely different situation. You might even find that it's a lot cheaper to live there, and you might find, like I have found, that some places outside of the US, it's a lot easier to live there. The weather's a lot nicer, and sometimes the people can be a lot nicer too. So I appreciate it. If you guys are interested in hopping inside of my Facebook group, click the link below. If you're interested in getting started with affiliate marketing, which is what I do to help fund myself as I live abroad and continue to travel, click the link below as well. Make sure to subscribe to this channel. More content coming soon. I appreciate all you guys, and I'll catch you on the next video.